is Thursday. RawMikeRichards.com, broadcasting live from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto, 234 King Street East, out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. Coming up today, a great interview with the legendary Jerry Glanville. You don't think he's got stories? He's got stories. He'll be the defensive coordinator for the Hamilton Tiger Cats this year, along with his good friend June Jones. I think between the both of them, they have coached together for about the last time, I think Lincoln was shot during the show. It's going to be a very interesting year, and I would suggest a much better year for the CFL, as I think the teams that struggled, including the Ticats, really underachieving in that first half of the season. Literally, the first half of the season was a throwaway. I thought Jeremiah Masoli looked good. They were 6-4 in their last 10. And I'll be honest, I think probably if you were looking at the playoffs last year, if the Ticats had managed to get in, I don't think you wanted to play them. Also, Ron Francis, I don't know if it's a huge shock, but out in Carolina, of all the places, Dave, I think I'd like to live and play hockey.
Carolina? Raleigh?
Just not the hockey part.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like, that is such a hard place to sell hockey. It really is. Even when to think that they have won a Stanley Cup is bizarre. And I guess with Ron Francis going out, the change of ownership, Kermanos obviously gone. They start anew, but good luck trying to kickstart that thing. I think you had a better chance of watching Rita McNeil break 10 in the 100.
You think she could do it? What do you think she'd clock in as?
Well, not now.
No?
Yeah.
I'm not referring to I'm not referring to as now.
If they roll her down a hill, like when you go out east, when you go to Magnetic Hill, maybe she'd
that
have a
came
better,
out wrong.
That'd be faster. Otherwise, sign her up. I think more of an offensive lineman, really, when you think about it.
Probably like a guard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Too short for a tackle.
Yeah.
You know, maybe guard center. You know what I mean?
Can you imagine that as they're calling things like, I can't get around her. Yeah. CFL, when you make that a replay. They're going upstairs.
There you go.
Coach saying, the coach is challenging that the offensive guard is too big. Can we get rid of some of those replays? I swear to God, stop wrecking football. Stop wrecking football. It's the first thing that we do. I don't care what league you're watching. What's the first thing the announcer says? And no flags. Now, all else we do is look for flags. I'm hoping for a much better year all around, really, when I think of football in general. So we'll talk about that today. Never a bad thing to talk about football, unless, of course, the clip I'm going to show you from 1983. Remember, I've always said the same thing. As much as if you win a championship or your team wins, it's a great and fantastic moment. But sometimes they're fleeting. What do you remember the most as an athlete? Your championships, your victories, or the loss that is burned in your soul? There's two things that bother me in all of sport. One of them I was a fan. So 1983 in the pass interference call on Gerald Bess, where the Argos win the Eastern Final, they go on and they play BC. In 1983, that's the Cedric Minter touchdown.
That's right.
So the Argos win the Grey Cup.
That Conridge Holloway, Joe Barnes combo?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But I will tell you the story when we get to it in 1983, which where you see Dieter Brock.
Yes.
Not Ralph.
No, he was Dieter at the time.
Remember, you go to you maybe the switch. I'm like, well, what is it?
Big number 5.
What is he? Oh, big is right. I don't think people realize that what a physical specimen he was. Throwing that sidearm cannon is really what it was. There's no one really like that, including the time he goes down and plays for John Robinson's L.A. Rams.
Only problem with that is they didn't let him throw the ball as much with the Rams just because of 29 in the backfield.
Dickerson right, Dickerson left, Dickerson right, and they go down. They had to play that Ditka Chicago team.
Yes,
and so
right.
That of all the timing, but to think of what he could have been, and look, they looked at him like he was an alien. He had the big sort of Alabama accent. And then he's like 20 years older than all. He had blonde. He made his hair all blonde. He freaked them out. I think the receivers were like Farmer. I think Farmer.
Okay.
Brown. I think might have been on that year. And they're looking at him. And he's talking about how he played for the Winnipeg Blue. Can you imagine hearing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? What?
He was also a former Ticats.
Well,
It's one of the biggest trades of my childhood when Dieter Brock was traded to Hamilton for Tom Clements.
Tom Clements was my hero too.
And Tom Clements was so good. I mean, like those are two all-star Hall of Fame quarterbacks middle of the season.
Yeah. To me, I look at
unheard of.
Tommy Clements, Dieter Brock, and of course Doug Flutie for me. And I look at those three guys, not to bypass a whole bunch of other quarterbacks, because obviously we've seen what Anthony Calvillo did. But still, those three quarterbacks, man, that was an error. So we'll talk a lot about that today. But again, talking to Jared Glanville is going to be pretty cool. A lot of history there, including some history I think some people don't know about. I mean, obviously the not for long comment in the NFL.
One of the best.
Which was
one of the best.
Well, it's legendary. And he is a legend. I would think one of the more colorful personalities that you've ever seen on the sidelines in both NFL, NCAA, and now in the Canadian Football League. So we'll do that today. Also, what do we also want to get to today? What did I have at the top of mind? Oh, yeah, it was interesting. Yesterday, we played a clip of Rory McIlroy getting heckled, and not in a very gentle way. It was the 2016 Ryder Cup. And so Mark Zecchino, right? So he's covering these events on a week-to-week basis, and I go, is it just me? Am I that naive to think that, especially a Ryder Cup where it's, as they would see it, us versus them, right? So it's the Americans versus them. That's how they see it. So if it's in the States, am I really that shocked that maybe some booze hound, some guy who got loaded up is going to make? But I really think the way that golf was, I never thought it really got that way. Here's Mark Zecchino, our good friend from Golf Talk Canada, tweeting in this morning, 2 hours ago. Happening way too often these days. Too much drink. I see it almost weekly now.
Wow.
Weekly.
And this is the same guy that's basically covering every single PGA Tour event weekly.
Weekly.
He's on the course for the 4 days plus the practice, and he sees it all, hears it all, and he's within the fans, because the actual whole commentators for PGA Tour radio do not sit beside the actual player. They sit within the fans in the stands and area, and they kind of walk with, and they have the you probably see them in the crowd. They have the big microphone earmuffs that come straight across. Sometimes there's a handheld mic, but he's within the group, right? So that's really too bad, because golf used to be a very polite game where none of this ever occurs. But of course, when you put up a lot of people in one area and Boozy McCown decides to have a little too much, I guess that's what happens.
And look, the Americans are really way up too tight when it comes to the Ryder Cup anyway. And I just didn't really think that, there are goofballs who are going to scream, "Get in the hole."
Off the tee box.
Off the tee box.
Yeah, I know.
Have you ever played with those guys seriously?
Yeah, I know.
There's way too many cute little phrases that if you ever play with a guy and when they putt and it's short and they go, I got a little meat left on them bones.
Oh yeah. Or
does your husband play?
That's hilarious. I know.
I hate the golfisms. I hate the sayings.
Oh, I know.
It's brutal. But anyways, if you missed it yesterday, here is really some stunning footage by, I think the guy who's heckling is also filming himself, just so you can see for yourself. This is what I'm talking about. This is what Mark Zecchino is saying is happening now on a weekly basis.
Peters, you're so small. So small.
This is doing great. Keep it up.
Rory coming up short. That's why Wozniacki left your ass. Suck a dick, Rory. Suck it.
Yep.
Yeah.
There it is.
Christ, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't me, man.
Yeah. See, so that was from yesterday.
Big loser.
Like, what's the? I mean, look, at a football game, do I think that people are gonna? Yeah. At a football game, you're 9 miles away from the players. You're with. It's that horde mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Have I said the odd? Salty phrase?
I can't see that.
Yeah,
I can't see that.
Especially if the bet's going sideways. If the bet's going sideways, you just empty the stadium because something bad's going to happen. But to me, if that's the state of golf, like, would you do it in tennis? Because tennis is the same kind of thing. Although you'd never see either one of us sitting here at a tennis match, because I hate tennis. Tennis and I are not friends. We were friends when McEnroe played Borg, way back then.
That's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, you haven't been friends for a long
Since
time.
then, we broke up a long time ago.
Yep.
Yeah. And you're
Don't
not
even talk.
Yeah, we're not getting back either.
No.
Hey, did you see the match last week? Is this tennis?
Didn't.
Yeah, well, we went out there. It's 5 hours. Yeah, I don't tennis. I told you. Don't call here again. We're not getting back. Yeah, but you see Roger Federer? Yeah, I saw the guy with the headband. We're not getting back. That's the reason why. Headband, champagne, too many consonants. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. You tire me out. You're watching rawmikeRichards.com, either on the website or...
Tennis would be a lot more exciting if it was football.
Yeah, just change the rules a little bit. Get more guys. Get some helmets and a football and a goal line.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying, too. We're now, as we head into March. Of course, March Madness is coming up, so it will be betting aplenty. Yeah, like it's not now. By the way, Virginia Tech, did you forget the rules of the game halfway through the second half yesterday? Oh, my God, did you suck. I mean, terribly. But also the time of year, Dave, where I think that young Russell's happy because the word is this still, as you announced it yesterday on the show, we're seeing Austin Matthews back. So,
breaking news, I know.
So, Russell, as we go to the Russ Cam, we say the largest Leaf fan in the world.
That's fair.
Who normally has the largest Leaf hat. I noticed you're going hatless today. Is it you're just more rugged, or because I see you got the playoff beard going that you've been growing for the last?
That's true. He's ready.
Couple
three
of
months.
Years. Oh, I was going to say 2 years.
That's sweet.
So, are we excited about Austin? Are you doing something special?
Well, I haven't seen the news this morning. Is it any different from yesterday? Or
No, it hasn't.
No.
Doubtful for Saturday against the Penguins, but if he's skating, it usually means that he's probably 4 or 5 practices away from the real deal, right? Excitement.
Yeah, I'm not expecting him to play Saturday. I'm going to the game next week in Buffalo, so I'm hoping he's at that one. But at the end of the day, I'm just hoping he comes back when he's ready to come back. I'd rather him be 100% healthy for the playoffs than come back too early in the regular season.
Let me just ask you something. Let's just say you go up to a ski resort.
Ooh.
You know, like you and your mom. And
is he wearing a turtleneck?
And he's in a hot tub, in the communal hot tub, and no one else is there. Would you go up and introduce yourself and then slink into the hot tub, or would you just right in the hot tub, don't say anything? Which would you do? I'm curious.
I might introduce myself and then not go in the hot tub if it's just him.
Interesting.
I think you're lying. I think you're lying to me.
No, I think he's introducing himself.
I think you high five, off come the swim trunks. Woohoo!
Exactly.
Woo!
Another question for Rusty before we stop his music. Over under on amount of playoff games the Leafs will play as a whole, I'm putting at 6. Do they go over or under that total of 6 playoff games? No, let's go 5.5. 5.5. So over under 5.5.
Yeah.
I'm going to say over 5.5 because I think either way, Boston and Tampa are going to be very tough regardless of which one they play. But I think in either series, whether they win or not, I'm not saying they will. But
okay, that's my second question.
I think they're going to at least 6, maybe a 7th game.
My second question is over under playoff games 7.5. Over or under?
Because that's the key. That's the key right
See,
here.
it's always the second question that's tougher than the first.
Yeah. That's how we play the game.
As a fan, I'm saying over. As someone, if I was placing money on it, I might say under.
Well, if you want to win, you'd say under, right?
Yeah, but boy, I'll tell you, thanks, sir.
That was great.
That's tremendous stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Although, I mean, look, this is almost, and I hate to say it, but if I'm looking at the progression of the Maple Leafs, where I think they should be, this is a bridge year again. Don't you think? Yep. Like, unless I really believe that this is a championship team. Do I think that this is a Stanley Cup team? No, I don't. Is there possibility down the road? Because I think it's still a work in progress. I would say when you get itchy as a Leaf fan, I think it's next year is where you want to see some expectation.
True.
But that means you're going to see a couple new faces, Dave.
You're going to see a lot of new faces, actually, because there's going to be some moving in the offseason. You might even see a brand new general manager because there's a lot of reports that say Lou Lamoriello will not be back for next year, which would kind of be sad because when you break down what he's done, I think he's done a lot more good than bad, but I guess we'll have to see what happens with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But decisions have to be made. Guys have to be re-signed. When there's money taken from the pot, somebody usually has to leave. Does that mean they're trading one of their younger players? Are they trading somebody else? Are they dumping a Matt Martin? Are they? I mean, there's a lot of different ways to kind of figure this out, but there's a lot to be had with the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll have to see what happens. Just quickly with their schedule, Mike. So they have had an off week as far as not really playing much. They lost in Buffalo on Monday, as we know. It's Pittsburgh on Saturday. Then they have another 3 days off before they play Dallas at home, then Buffalo the next night, Montreal Canadiens on the 17th, which is the following Saturday night. So Dallas after Pittsburgh, Dallas, Buffalo, Montreal, very winnable games outside of the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, the Dallas Stars are a weird team to follow too. I think in the first year where Jim Nill goes down there, they kind of overachieve.
Yep.
Then they're brought down to earth. So this year I'm a little unsure of what I think about Dallas, but the West is always that way, right? I mean, if you didn't know any better and you're a third-party observer from, like, I don't know, Mars, and you take a look at the Golden Knights and go, obviously they're the best team in the world. I mean, yeah, by the way, last year they didn't exist. They didn't exist. They weren't even around.
No, exactly.
Like, I've never seen anything like this. Never anything like this. Speaking of things that I've never seen before, I'm going to, before we get to Jerry Glanville, who, by the way, the new DC for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, along with his longtime coaching partner, June Jones. It's going to be very interesting in Hamilton this year to see what they do. But as a Ticat fan who's been going to the games since the picture that I have that I've shown on Twitter with my dad was 1971. 1971 on the front page of the Spec. That's when they would have the home and home, when the Eastern Western Finals.
Yep.
They were 2 games, which still freaks people out. If you talk to someone from the States, they're like, "What do you mean?" Well, you know how you'd have like the AFC Championship, right? Well, you play once there, and then next week you play back. It's a home and home.
That's crazy.
Like, it is.
When
It
you
is
think of
nuts.
it, yeah.
It is crazy. And then they tried to bring it back for a while, and then that faded out because there were some crazy games. The year that the Ticats beat Edmonton. So what was that? 80. I'm trying to think what Grey Cup that was. They come back and they have the miraculous comeback at Exhibition Stadium. Mike Kerrigan was the quarterback.
Yep.
And they had a huge lead because it's just like Champions League. There's an aggregate score. So the Ticats get lit up at either win. They're down by like 30 points. And just like it does happen, snowballs on the field, kind of a weird, lackluster game. The moment the ball gets snapped over Hank Olisic's head and he has to go and take a safety, it just spiraled out of control. Dwight Edwards was playing for the Argos at that point.
Okay.
Anyway, why do these things stick with me? Okay, I'll tell you why. So 1983 was a time where there wasn't great coverage aside from CBC. The way the CFL worked back then, and this is why at least a generation of fans never got to see or got into the game, is because the games were blacked out.
I hated that.
They would black out the games, and there wasn't even like a blackout rule where if it was sold out, so at this point in 1983, there's going to be an Eastern Conference final game between the Ticats and the Argos. I'm dying to see it, but it's not going to be on TV. You could get it if you had channel whatever it was and watch Peterborough, but you could only see it if you were in Peterborough because it was blacked out in the Toronto area. So I go to see my buddy Murray Giffen, who's at Trent University, obviously in Peterborough. Now, by the way, there's a long story to this. I was pulled over by the police at once. I had orange oven mitts on my feet. Got into a bit of a car accident, got into a bit of a fight. But on the Sunday, I actually get a chance to see this game. And who plays in this game? It's what Dave talked about. The year 1983, on the Argos side, you have Condridge Holloway and Joe Barnes, and you have Dieter Ralph Brock. This is Exhibition Stadium, property of the Canadian Football League, but this is one of the great yet most hurtful moments. But just get a load of this is Pat Marsden doing the play-by-play of this. This is remarkable.
1st and 5, Hamilton from the Toronto 41-yard line. Rock going deep to a wide-open Shepherd. Touchdown, Hamilton.
Johnny Shepherd.
What a beautiful pass, right on the money to Johnny Shepherd.
Love those unis.
They look good.
Well, no question for the Hamilton Charleston fans in the stands here, as you saw their reaction. Johnny Shepard just a little out and up down the sidelines. They fooled the Argonaut coverage. Not able to get over in time. Johnny Shepard 41 yards into the end zone. And I think that shows you how Dieter Brock's back is feeling. He put that ball right on the money.
And see, that was the time where Dieter Brock actually had that. That was the issue he had almost his whole career.
Yep.
What was the back? Those were the great unis. And by the way, the voice of Leif Pettersson, the late great Leif Pettersson. So this is as the game is winding down, and I am sweating like a pig and drinking a lot. I'm out in Peterborough at a frat house, and when I mean a frat house, what you imagine a frat house to be, that's kind of how it is. For breakfast, we had cake and bacon and booze.
Yeah,
but
three good things.
Now I'm waiting for this moment. What's weird, you're going to hear names like Harold Ballard because, of course, he owned the team. Him and King Clancy used to go to the games. They created a trophy between the two teams. And as the game starts to wind down, I'm thinking the Ticats are going to win this thing. Until this moment.
This has been something.
I'll tell you, I don't know if he's close to you, but Harold Ballard, the owner of the Ticats, and King Clancy must have gone crazy. Ballard's already said, as far as he's concerned, this is his Grey Cup game. But if he should, by any chance with the Cats, make it to the Grey Cup, look out Vancouver next week.
I don't think the town's big enough for Harold.
That was Bill Stevenson, by the way, talking there.
From the 35, Covington appeared to be outside. There is no flag down. Pass for Townsend is very nearly picked off. Now let's see, we're going to have an interference call against who? Will it be against Gerald Best or will it be against Jeff Townsend?
I'm losing my mind.
Oh, this is a critical play. There is a penalty flag back at the line of...
That's pass interference?
That Covington jumped.
You be the judge. Of course, now the coaches can throw a flag and challenge. Like, who has the better position on this play?
Offside. Hamilton, number 77. Decline. Forward pass interference. Hamilton, number 14. First down.
Brutal.
Interference gives Toronto possession at the Hamilton.
Okay, here it comes again.
40.5-yard line.
Watch this. Is this pass interference?
Look at it. Jeff Townsend working against Gerald Best, and Best has his back to the football. Bump on Jeff Townsend. Boy, that's a tough one to call right there.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Boo.
1983. Have never let it go.
Jake Ireland was he? Was
Oh,
he?
Jake.
The,
Oh, yeah, Jake was. Jake was. Jake Ireland, of course, was the official. They show that on Channel 4 in Buffalo. They said apparently in the Canadian Football League, this is pass interference, and they show it on their sports broadcast, which led to even more drinking, Dave.
Yeah, no kidding.
But that's the way it goes.
I think we all have stories like that.
We do. What is the, as a fan, just moments before we call Jerry Glanville, legendary coach, now the defensive coordinator of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, what is the worst? That was one of the worst I ever had as a kid, being a fan of the team.
Mm-hmm. My worst moment, and it's not, you have football moments. You know, the trading of Dieter Brock wasn't very good when the Bombers actually traded him. But when you got back what you got back,
that was equal pain because the same thing. Tommy Clements going about rip my heart out.
Yeah, so you know what you're getting back, but you also know what you're losing. So,
like, it's a weird trade. What is an equivalent trade in hockey right now? Just so people understand, is it because you can't say Crosby for McDavid because the age is too different.
No,
these guys are similar ages.
It would be almost like I was gonna say McDavid for Matthews. But I think that's one-sided favoring the Leafs because they're getting McDavid back. But you're almost like the equivalents.
Is it Line A Matthews?
Yeah, but then Toronto would sit there and say, "Oh, you're giving away this," but meanwhile you're getting the best scorer in the NHL.
Yeah, that wasn't a very complimentary impression, I think, of a Leaf fan. Is that what that was?
It was a Leaf fan. My moment in sport that I'll remember as a kid is, and this will not surprise you, a series against the Calgary Flames, Winnipeg Jets in the 80s. Dale Hawerchuk cuts through center ice, moves in past the blue line, tries to get around Jamie McCowan, and Jamie McCowan sticks Dale Hawerchuk with a full cross check into the ribs and breaks his ribs. Hawerchuk leaves the game. He's out the remainder of the playoffs. They end up beating the Flames, but get swept by the Edmonton Oilers in the next round. That's the memory I'll always remember of what if Dale Hawerchuk was part of that series against the Edmonton Oilers.
And once again,
Just saying.
the name Dale Howardchuk
Weird, eh?
makes it to the show.
It does.
We'll be looking for Jerry Glanville, the new defensive coordinator for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, here on Raw Mike Richards. Looking forward to this. The legend.
Hello.
I'm looking for the legendary Jerry Glanville. It's Mike Richards calling from rawmikeRichards.com.
Let me see if I can find him. I don't know if he's in the building.
Yeah, he left like Elvis, did he?
He left the building.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jerry, if there is one place that's been overlooked where Elvis just might be to pick up those tickets, it just might be Hamilton, Ontario.
Well, I hope so, because you know what I love about the stadium is named after Horton, right?
Yep, that is correct.
Well, I was in Canada. I pulled into Horton's, and I got me a Canadian croissant. It was the best croissant. It beats anything I ever had in France.
What about biscuits? I don't know if there's a whole bunch of biscuits and gravy, though. Gonna miss that on the diet?
Yeah, unfortunately, where I live, biscuits and gravy is recommended by every doctor 3 times a day.
Jerry, it's great to have you on the show. I know for a lot of fans, we're really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen up here in the CFL, particular, obviously, for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And, I take a look at, some of the challenges that maybe people have. But I guess in reality, Jerry, when I look at your career, you're not much of a coach who brings a blueprint or a template that you use over and over again. I think you're more of a coach that probably takes a look at his athletes, what he's got at hand, and you sort of develop a defense around that.
It's funny you say that, because we had the number 1 defense, as you probably know, in National Football League at 5 different clubs, and we never ran the same defense at either one of them. Because your players, I'm a guy, I will not put my players in positions that they cannot win at. And people think, geez, Jerry Glanville has full press, bump and run all over the field. Well, I did when I had Deion Sanders and McKyer, because those 2 corners at full press, bump and run had 26 picks in 1 year. But in the 77, which we hold every record in the league, my corners were 9 yards off. They couldn't play dead. So, you want to catch 11 outs in front of them, go ahead and throw it. You weren't getting over the top of it. So we'll adjust. My good assistant coaches up there that I've talked to on the phone, I'm going to meet with them next week. We're going up to Hamilton next week and put the whole scheme in and talk to. But my question, which each coach, I say, what is the strength of this defensive guy?
Mm-hmm.
Can he do this? No. Can he do this? No. Can he do this? Very well. That's where this scheme will end up, with what the guy can do. If you're a hard ball, this is my scheme, this is what you got to do, you're always chasing players that fit into your scheme. I'm not in the personnel department, so I'm going to look at our players, and whatever our players do, we're going to get them to excel at what they do best and not ask them to do something they can't do. I went to Buffalo one time. A guy said, we want to be full press, bump and right corner. My corners couldn't run out of a girdle, let alone run on a football field. So you get your butt beat. We won't allow that.
That's interesting. Jerry, I have to ask you, you were a guest coach with the Ticats last season, and you brought it up in a couple different interviews that I saw. How much of a factor does that, coaching-wise, that 1 yard between the offense and defense, how much of a factor does that allow you as a defender to kind of figure out this offense? It's a big difference, isn't it?
Well, it's hard on the offense, too. I think they did it to help the offensive line, but I'm not sure that it didn't backfire. Because if I'm off a yard, it's called a stick. I can start up over the tackle, and with that yard off, I may slam all the way down and pick the center to bring somebody else around. I think they tried to help the offensive line, but I think they may have made it tougher on the offensive line. But what I call long stick blitzes that come from a distance, that can be sorted out too. So I don't think that works. At Atlanta Falcons 1 year, I brought the free safety a bunch, but I brought them from depth. Well, I think if you bring your secondary people, your deep people, the line can sort that out and see that coming. I think that's a disadvantage. So I think any pressure that we come on in will be what I call instamatic. The pressure has to be right now. We can't be talking about it. We can't be bringing it out of left field. We got to bring it now because one thing I studied the quarterbacks in Canada, they bring the ball out. None of the quarterbacks hold the football. So you have to build that in your defensive scheme. If I can get a quarterback to hold the football, I can do all kinds of things. I can draw plays with a bar of soap on a mirror. But when the ball comes out, then you have to, we were the only guys that beat Bill Walsh twice a year when Bill Walsh was with the 49ers. And the reason I figured that out, I could blitz a guy free and nobody ever touch him, and the ball was still out. You didn't get to the quarterback. So you have to adjust, how that quarterback brings the ball out. My whole life on my tombstone, I tried to make quarterbacks' life, punters' lives, and field goal kickers' lives miserable. I don't want them to have one play where they said, well, that was nice, that was easy. Every single snap, we try to make the quarterback, the punter, and the field goal kicker earn his pay.
Interesting. And then Cat fans look forward to that. Can you tell us about your relationship with June Jones? You guys have coached at the NCAA, NFL. He was a quarterback for you. You guys just seem to work out really well, and you're about to start a new campaign with the Cats. Why have you guys clicked? What's the secret to your success so far?
It's kind of funny. He was my assistant a couple of places, did not want to come, and you'll die laughing. I called him up. I said, I need you here tomorrow. He goes, well, I'm fine where I am. I goes, your ticket's at the counter. I'll see you tomorrow. And by the way, he showed up twice. We beat everybody. Now I'm going to North Dakota. I'm going to schools trying to hire me, and I get a call. I need you over here in Hawaii. I goes, well, they offered me the head job over here in this North Dakota. He goes, the ticket's at the counter. I'll see you tomorrow. He put it right back on me. By the way, in Hawaii, what a run! Only June Jones could do what we did in Hawaii. Only June Jones can do what he does. In Hawaii, you die laughing. We played Pete Carroll at Southern Cal. They had 29 guys who are going to be drafted, and I told June, I says we're going to shut these guys out. He goes, well, what are you smoking? I goes, no, we're going to shut them out. Well, June gets the football and keeps it for the whole first quarter and then throws a pick that's run back for a touchdown. And so I walked by June on the sideline. I goes, well, there goes my shutout. We're not even in the game yet. Well, about the third quarter, they got us by about 50, and he walked by and he said, I guess that pick wasn't a big deal, was it? So people would be shocked if they knew what we said, what we do on the sideline in a game to each other.
We're in conversation.
One time we were coaching in Cleveland in the playoffs, and we had a death threat. And everybody, of course, knows when you got a death. Whenever I wore that High Plains Drifter jacket, we had a death threat, and I had body armor on and all that. Well, no player or no coach comes near you for the whole game. And finally, we're going to win the game, and it's right at the end. And June now says, he comes up, he goes, this is the greatest win ever. Beat Cleveland and Cleveland in the playoffs. And somebody from the upper deck throws an apple and hits him right in the back. And he drops on the ground. He goes, they got me. I goes, no, it's just an apple. Get back up.
We're talking to Jerry Glanville here on rawmike.richards.com, picking up on, look, and funny, Jerry, you say people couldn't imagine what gets talked about on the sidelines. I think some people can imagine maybe what happens and talks on the sidelines when it comes to Jerry Glanville. What about your good friend Mouse Davis? It's funny you talk about Hawaii and the way that team was, that 05-06 team that you had. Colt Brennan had just a spectacular career out there in Hawaii. Mouse Davis is another longtime coach and friend of yours.
Just about everything you see. For instance, you've probably seen Alabama win the game at the end. With what's called the pass run divide. Well, there's a kid in Alabama that played in Hawaii, and he threw that pass. Mouse Davis invented that pass. Mouse Davis invented a lot of things that everybody does. I was the first people to run the shotgun 4 wides and run shotgun, not on 3rd and long, and they thought they were going to have to kick me out of the league. They didn't know if it was legal. So Mouse, very innovative, very smart, very intelligent. June learned a lot from him. I sort of added the running game to June. I didn't want to play frisbee ball. I wanted to, you know, you probably forget Smash Mouth football. That name came from our Houston Oilers team. Yet we were 4 wides in a shotgun in the term Smash Mouth football. Because, you know, when we run the football, I tell everybody, don't solve every problem with a new pass pattern. Solve some problems by breaking some freaking noses. And that's what we added really to Mouse Davis's package.
Jerry, I'm a huge fan of NFL films. And to this day, even here in 2018 and while we speak, I could probably find the legendary clip that you have chewing out an NFL official saying NFL stands for not for long if you keep on making those bleep calls like that. What do you remember about that game? And did you ever think that once you said that you and I or you and a media member could be talking about it decades later?
Well, it's unbelievable. It's sort of got a life of its own, and it made the official so famous. We traveled all around the country giving speeches about it. Here he couldn't even officiate. Now I made him a millionaire. But the week before, we played the Broncos in Denver. And Elway went off on a scramble, and I had a great linebacker named Johnny Meads. And we went over there, and he pulled off of Elway, and Elway went straight forward, went knee-high, and blew Johnny Meads' knee. So we're trying to protect Elway, and Johnny Meads goes to surgery. Well, the next week we're in Tampa, and I said, if that quarterback scrambles, protect yourself. Send him to surgery, not yourself. Well, lo and behold, the quarterback took off running, and a guy named Robert Lyles, another outside lineman, went after him, and here come the flag. And I said, who is that official? I never saw him. He was a college official's first year. The Vanderbilt Wake Forest game where they're not allowed to hit. And I got upset at him.
Well, Jerry, the one thing I do know that upon coming to the Ticats, you've got Orlando Steinauer, you know, Coach O's, they call him, is there. And I think, you know, at least from what I see and how you've coached over the years, that you do rely on conversations with the guys that are surrounding you. Because the fear always in Canada is when someone doesn't have CFL experience, regardless of the resume coming from the States, they're always afraid that they don't understand the nuances of the game. But the fact is, when you have someone like Steinauer behind you, I know you're going to use him. In fact, you know, as you said, you've been up to camp in 2017. It's not like you haven't been watching the games. It's not like you haven't been doing your own sort of...
You should have been with me. My first 3 days in camp, and I thought I couldn't coach anymore. My first 3 days, where I was visually trying to stop the offense that they were running, I never figured it out for 3 days, and I never stopped the play. Just exactly what your fans say. And I thought, my God, people think I'm an innovator and invented football. I can't stop anything. And the 4th day, it clicked on how I could change what we did in the United States to make that package work in Canada. I had to make some corrections and some changes. And the 4th day, I finally went up to the head coach and I said, I finally stopped in some plays. I finally figured. But for 3 days, I was the worst coach in Hamilton that they've ever had until I figured out what I had to do. These receivers that are back there and running at the line and switch routes, it's called a switch. They're switching positions before they ever get to the line of scrimmage. Well, what I learned, you and me are DBs, we have to be on different levels to combo this. You and I both can't be at 7 yards. We're going to knock each other off. It's all about different levels in Canada, on whether you're on the wide receiver, the second wide receiver, the third wide receiver. And that took me 3 days. It took me 3 days. And my first 3 days, I told the coaches, I don't think I can coach anymore. This thing's wide open. I do believe this. I believe if you can stop Canadian offenses, you can come back to the U.S. and kick their butt.
Interesting.
Well, and I don't disagree. I mean, I think some of the, when you look at the sort of read options and what you see a lot in I guess Chip Kelly to a degree, made his name in Oregon and so on. But I think a lot of those quarterback option plays, I mean, they've been running up here for a very long time, which I think has been implemented south of the border. But it goes back to my original thought, which is football may sort of change from year to year, but really it's an old game and variations of stuff that's been done before. I think it's just a matter of being imaginative when you're a coach.
And when you say this is what I do, this is our offense, goodbye, that's the end of it. You have to have nuances that change, that make the defensive people, if you're coaching offense. On defense, if they know you bring the will every time there's an ace week, they're smart enough that pretty soon they're going to be running something over there. I'm a guy that knows the RPO. I know RPO football. I know if I walk the linebacker out on 2, and you're a bubble screen team, I know I'll make you check out of the bubble screen. So I'm a guy that will control the offensive play because I'll show you something you can't do. You're going to run weak, and I know you're a weak running team out of the set. I'll build a 4-man side over there, and guess what? They'll audible and run the other way. So that's the fun for me. It doesn't matter. This is what I tell everybody. I tell every college professor I ever worked for. It doesn't matter what I know. It doesn't matter my intelligence. That will not win us a game. What matters is what I can teach. And I told every college that ever hired me, he goes, the president said, how should I introduce you? I said, introduce me as the best professor on campus, the best teacher you ever, because that's who I am. We'll teach and we'll get our players going. I love the assistant coaches that I talk to. I think they'll be a big plus for us. They've got experience in the league, so I'm going to say, this is what I want to do. And it's up to them to say, that won't work here, coach. You got to modify that, and you got to modify that. Well, show me why it won't work. Well, if they show me, we'll modify it. We'll do something else.
Interesting. Jerry, I've always liked your wardrobe. Hell, I'm wearing a black shirt in honor of this interview.
Tribute.
Are you gonna be
great?
Are you gonna be wearing full black on the sidelines? Are you gonna be easy to spot as you were in the NFL as well?
Well, the beauty of it is at least the team's colors are black.
Yes,
so I'm backing our team with the same. Now, when I wore black at Houston, which we were powder blue, I once said to the owner, Bud Adams, I said, our powder blue uniforms are the ugliest thing I've ever seen. We got to change those. I said, where'd you get that color? And Bud Adams looked at me and says, my wife picked that color because it was the same color as my eyes. I said, well, it ain't that bad of blue,
Hey, also, too, Coach, am I going to find you, like, just down the road from Hamilton is a place called Cayuga. They got a speedway. Am I going to be catching you the odd time in a weekend in a car? What's going on with that?
You're kidding. They have a speedway?
Yes, they do.
Yes, sir.
Well, I guess what I'm driving right now. I wish you two were with me. Guess what I'm driving?
Mustang.
I'm in my Shelby Cobra.
Yeah,
my Shelby Cobra.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely.
6-speed, 603 horsepower, and let the big dog eat, man. How about this? Way back, June Jones and I, we'd work till 2, 3 in the morning, and we'd race home.
Oh,
and June drives like I do. People don't know that. And we would race home, and we're going in Houston, going over railroad tracks at a very excessive speed. And then right when it came to where he turned off and I turned off, then we were run by ourselves. So I'm running home about 2 or 3 in the morning, and bam, all the lights come on, and they got radar out there at 3 in the morning waiting for me to cross the bridge. And the poor cop comes up, he goes, we heard about you running out there like that. That's why we set the radar up. I goes, at 3 in the morning? He goes, yes. I goes, why would you do that? And he says, well, what would you do if a little kid ran out in the road and you ran over and killed him? I said, at 3 o'clock, he ought to be run over. He should be in damn bed.
Hey, Jerry, thanks so much for taking the time joining us. I'm really looking forward to what we can expect to see with the Ticats. I know players like Simone Lawrence, who I know is just can't wait to get on the field. I know he puts out on Twitter, and the guy's working out like mad because you do have one motivated team. And there's no question in the second half of last year, that Hamilton Tiger Cat team played some. Well, the way I'd put it, Jerry, is they were very professional in the second half of that year. They didn't let it get away from them. They came out like pros. And I think if they made it to the playoffs, I think people would not have wanted to play this team. So the fact that you've got that kind of motivation from the players, a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, Jerry.
Well, I loved the players when I was up there. I've talked to some of them because they were in a contract dispute. I talked to the linebacker, and I talked to some players, and they're all excited because I told the linebacker, this is your new assignment. This is what you do. This is what you do. And the linebacker, who I guess was with the Vikings, I don't know how long, he goes, stop, coach, stop. I goes, why? He goes, I've just learned more football in an hour and a half phone conversation than I've ever learned in my life. And I goes, well, this is what you're going to do. And I said, I will not ask you to do the shift up. When we shift from a 4-1, from a 4-2 to a 5-1, I am not letting you shift up because the coaches that are there told me you're the guy that should stay back. Now, if I don't have good coaches with me, I may be shifting the wrong guy.
Right.
So it's all going to work out. The biggest thing is we will have fun, and you only have fun in football when you win.
Well, that's
all about winning.
That's exactly it. Jerry, thanks so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll catch up with you again sometime during the year. Maybe we'll find some barbecue in Hamilton because I know they got some barbecue there.
Yep.
They got some places in Hamilton. They got some good barbecue.
I tell you what, once you live in Texas, you don't eat much Mexican food unless you're in Texas. But you can find good barbecue in Canada and the States. But we are fussy with our Mexican food. Everybody's lived in Texas. It's pretty dang fussy when they bring out the Mexican food. It better be real good, brother.
Jerry, you take care. Thanks so much for joining.
Thanks, Coach.
Best of luck this season, too.
All right, adios.
Jerry Glanville, the legend, on there with, look, those are just a portion of the story. I got to play this. I'm going to play some music for him here.
Play him out, exactly.
That was Jerry Glanville talking about them stories about outrunning the police. But he does make a really good point, and it's one that I do know about him, which is that template that some coaches just can't let go in certain sports. They have a resume of success, and they're coming to run what they have always run. So it looks kind of predictable. As they get older, they kind of fall back on sort of a default. He's not that guy. And when he is being honest, saying that, those first 3 days where he's just kind of going, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah, it's a different world.
I don't have a handle on this. He was not lying. And then the fourth day, sort of the clouds separate. A light comes out. He sees the light. He's seeing the light. I'm really looking forward to the season because I think, if anything,
I could start today as far as I'm concerned.
I know. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. And the other thing, too, for all those that want to make mention of age, well, if you want to start getting rid of the 65s and ups, then get ready to clear out the coaching staff, or at least about 80% of them in the NFL, NCAA. I don't really think age is limiting when it comes to coaching. I really don't. I mean, I would have hated to have gone up to Joe Paterno as soon as he turned 65, or Paul Bear Bryant, or any of the coaches I can think of with that knowledge that they have, as long as they're modern thinking. And you just heard Jerry talk. I think that he's, in his mind, as young as he wants to be. So as much as I know that people tend to roll their eyes when they see the average age on a coaching staff is like 70-something, and to a degree it's not heavily experienced in the CFL, but I think it's the guy that's willing to learn that makes it happen. Sure, Wally Bono, Canadian, but you start going down the list. Mike O'Shea's done a good job, but you've got like thousands of years of coaching on that sideline with Hamilton. But I think the players have the right attitude. I know the ownership has the right attitude, and if you're a Ticat fan, if you're the Box J boys, if you're our buddy Jarrett, I think you're going to have a good season. In fact, I think the East, period. I mean, there's been some acquisitions that Ottawa has made. They had some injuries last year. Ottawa's going to be way better. That was a year forgotten, as far as I'm concerned, for the Red Blacks. Toronto's going to be good again.
Yep.
Toronto will be good again. And I think if I'm taking a look, I mean, Montreal's a coin flip. I'm unsure about how much better they're going to be. They will be better than they were last year.
Well, they got a brand new head coach. They got a brand new quarterback, or at least the hope of it. So you look at the East, and I think the East is wide open, and I think it's there for the taking. And I think a lot of clubs that are starting to put together, and Jerry talked about coming up to Hamilton next week to start meeting with the coaches and organize a little bit before the actual spring camp and before the actual training camp. every single coaching staff in the East is probably sitting there next week going, you know what? We have a chance to win this division. And that's throughout. That's how competitive the East will be this year. I look forward to it. And like I said, this is our quiet period because there's no football. The NFL's over. The CFL hasn't started yet. I mean, give me that attachment to something coming up. And May long weekend is when they finally get the pads on and everything happens for real. So I can't wait.
Well, taking a look at the schedule. So for the Ticats, it's a tough one. You're going to start off in Calgary. And Calgary has enough pressure on them. I mean, my God. Doesn't matter what marketing campaign they put out there. Oh, we'll get them this time. That's an angry fan base in Calgary.
That's not a very good marketing slogan either.
Why you? Stuff like that won't work. But Hamilton's got to start in Calgary, which historically, not the favorite place to play. Then you got to go up to skanky Edmonton. They, by the way, host obviously the Grey Cup this year. That's a tough
big
start.
Time. Yeah, Alberta, back to back on the road.
Then they open up, I believe, against the Bombers.
They open up against the Bombers. That's right. They open up against the Bombers on a Friday night. I believe it's a Friday night. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, it's at three Western opponents that are playoff teams last season. And Hamilton wants to finish, 2-1 at worst, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to get that jump. By the way, when you're playing music before the game starts in your headphones, this is why we listen.
This is it.
Oh yeah, freak, like total freak. By the way, he did mention special teams, which I thought was interesting because I think it's going to be done by committee. June Jones has done this before.
Okay.
Where they don't have a single guy, they're gonna talk about it quite a bit. But yeah, we're ready for it. It was great having Jerry on, and he's got a ton of stories. Those were it's a fraction of
we
what
could have
talked about.
We could have talked to Jerry Glanville for about 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
Like we never touched on Brett Favre and the relationship there. We never talked about his high school teammate Jim Leland.
Yeah, that's weird, eh?
So that is weird.
Jim Leland and him are high school buddies.
Yeah, and it's like one becomes a Hall of Fame football coach, the other one becomes a Hall of Fame baseball coach, and it's like, yeah, we hung out in high school. So it's Jerry Glanville was awesome. He lived up to expectation, and I had pretty high hopes for a solid interview, and well done.
I'm going to go back to something. Russell, find the Colt Brennan, University of Hawaii. That I know we ran underneath when they got together. So this is Mouse Davis, this is June Jones, and Jerry Glanville. This is 2005, 2006. Colt Brennan was the star. Now a lot of people want to brush over it simply because of who they play, but I still think even though it was a year later, they go in, they play in the Sugar Bowl, they get blown out by Georgia, but teams do get blown out in bowl games. I just think it's about the kind of program, the kind of teams you play. And I think at this point I think they weren't Mountain West at this point. I think they might have still been WAC. And so they go to actually it's a home game because they play the Sheridan Honolulu Bowl is what it's become. But there was no question the way that came together, which in essence, if you're talking about those kinds of spread offenses, if you're talking about run and shoot with Mouse Davis, well, that's what the CFL is built on. Those kinds of logistics, those schemes is what it's built on. And going back, this is, I guess, property of the NCAA, probably, I don't know, maybe even ESPN. But just take a look. This is why this team was so much fun to watch on a school that you never are going to see. You have to remember, for the most part, if you're they're now Warriors, but if you were a Rainbow Warrior fan,
yes,
those games start times are the next day. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. If you're really going to watch these games, if you want to stay up on the computer. So Hawaii, for the most part, never gets seen. And again, people can pick away at what the competition is in that conference, but there's no question, man, was this entertaining. And Colt Brennan, for what it's worth, man, could he throw a ball, threw for 5 touchdowns in this game.
Now trailing by 7 points. Arizona State, conversely, looking for its 3rd consecutive bowl victory. And this the last game coached by Dirk Cutter, the head coach. 2nd and 16. Has a man wide open, and I mean wide open. Touchdown. It doesn't come any easier for Rivers.
This was a fun team to watch. Really was. sure they won't mind seeing that in Hamilton.
And with that, Cole Brennan ties the record for touchdown passes in a season with 54.
54.
Quickly when Brennan's behind center. First down and goal from the 7-yard line. What a nice catch that time by Bryce Mullins.
Now, again, it's kind of tough. We just had Jerry on. We didn't see much of his defense, but it's kind of hard to – there's not a lot of highlights to show the defense. But they rolled in that game. What was it, 41-10? Was that the final? They were down 10-3, but I think eventually they go on to win like 41-10. But that's what they're trying to build. That's what they're trying to emulate, that kind of magic. Now, Jeremiah Masoli, I mean, again, this is college, clock's different, field's different. But I think Jeremiah Masoli played with as much confidence as anyone down the road. I think they feel very good about going into the season. The one thing I'm going to be really interested in is Zach Collaros.
Yes, in Saskatchewan.
You know, that is just, to me, such an upgrade they've got. I know that was a tough season for him, and I think even as a fan, it was hard to see him go through what he's got. But I'm telling you right now, Zach Collaros can play. I mean, you go all the way back to the University of Cincinnati when he stepped in, and just this kind of poise that he has, the guy can play. And I think if you're a Rider fan, you've got to be happy with what you have in the offensive backfield. So I look forward to the season starting. Once again, it just seems like, as we look outside the window, look how garbage it looks. Trees look dead.
It's coming. Spring is coming soon.
Where's Buddy who gets all the good cigarettes? Where's the... And by the way, he has a Harvard hoodie on. Do you think he really went to that school? Because I got to be honest. Unless cigarette hunting was a doctorate, I'm not seeing it.
What? We just become best friends? Yep.
Oh, yeah.
You want to go do karate in the garage? Yep.
Absolutely.
It's time!
Would like to thank the legendary coach, Jerry Glanville, now the defensive coordinator for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I'm sure him and Coach O will be having a lot of long talks into the night trying to get this thing organized. As Jerry says, the first 3 days watching Canadian football, he couldn't even recognize, nor did he think he could coach in this league, period.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Look forward to it. Tomorrow we'll have some picks and get ready for Selection Sunday, by the way.
That's right, coming up Sunday night.
NCAA. Oh, I can smell the gambling from here.
Dig 'em.
And it smells yummy. Gambling. Gambling.